Hello, I'm Hudsonite editor and publisher Michael Foley. Welcome to another edition of Western Wisconsin Journal. Joining me for this segment is Bill Alms, who recently won a special election to become a member of the City Council here in Hudson. Congratulations, Bill, and welcome.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Well, I'd just like to spend the next 20 minutes or so helping residents in the city of Hudson and the rest of our viewership area get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up about an hour east of here, a little town called Colfax, Wisconsin, just right next to Menominee. Town of, like 1,100 people or whatever.
Sure.
It's a good town to grow up in, right? So grew up there my entire life, spent my entire life in the same house with my parents and grew up and graduated high school and said, okay, I need to go to a bigger place maybe.
Where'd you end up after that?
So I spent a little bit of time here in the Twin Cities, lived in Maplewood for maybe about 6 months. And at that point, I had so many interests, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so to speak, right? And my brother lived in Brooklyn, New York at the time. I was like, hey, maybe I should give Brooklyn a try. So moved out to Brooklyn, New York, lived there for about a year and a half, and I'm like, I need to get back to the Midwest.
Okay.
So
you just weren't digging Brooklyn, or?
Yeah, it wasn't exactly my cup of
homesick?
tea. I was out there. I was living in the city, so I didn't have a car. It was hard to, there's a certain amount of like cityness that happens. And
Of course.
you're like, I want to get back out into the Midwest.
So what was it exactly that lured you back, and what did you do when you got back?
It was actually school. At this point, I'm, 20 years old at the time. And so I figured I needed to do something with my life, right? I had a lot of interest, but couldn't zero in on it. So I wanted to go to school. So I ended up going to UW Milwaukee. And I only spent about a year, again, zero focus, didn't know really what I wanted to do. And then just started working in kitchens, working as a cook and trying to work my way up in the restaurant world down in Milwaukee.
Okay. How long were you down there?
I was down there for, must have been about 5, 6 years that I was down there. I met Bonnie, now my wife, down there when I was going to school. And then I moved up here and this time I'm like, okay, I really got to figure out what I'm going to do, right? Because
what exactly brought you back to the area up here?
Well, I love the Minneapolis area. I just kind of wanted to bug out, I guess, in Milwaukee. I did a little bit of research about some schools. I had a draw, I guess, in the end. I was doing kitchen work as a cook for, at that point, 6, 7 years, really just doing that. And had a desire to do something creative, so I looked up radio broadcasting, right?
Okay.
So I found Brown Institute up in, at the time I was in Minneapolis, it's since moved, but I went there, did radio broadcast, got a certificate in that, and within that 9-month course, there was maybe like 3 weeks that was video. And so
Actually shooting video behind the camera stuff?
Old Betacam and take out a light kit and do some videos. And so, we made like really wacky commercial videos and, it was only 3 weeks. But once I had that taste of it, I'm like, okay, forget radio. I need to do television.
What was it about the video work that flipped that switch for you?
That's a good question. I don't know what it was exactly. Just, I guess being able to create, and the medium was just at the right time. Was like, hey, I really like this. I didn't do that much editing I didn't do a lot of work with it, but I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. And so Brown Institute afforded me the ability to they found me a placement at a local station, which is actually a nationwide station out of Eden Prairie at the time. It was called Value Vision, which is kind of a home shopping network, right?
Okay.
So went there, started as a camera op, saw the big board that the director was using to switch cameras and add graphics, and I'm like, okay, that's what I need to do. So
So you went from a behind the camera guy to a control room guy.
behind the camera to control room, and then on to line producing.
Okay.
When my time at what was then Shop NBC ended, I had found out it was within a month. I had they were cutting back at Shop NBC, so I was in that fold, right?
Was this during the recession?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and they were struggling, and I'd been there, for a good amount of time, and in that same month, I found out that my son has a rare disease, a syndrome, and we finally had a name to it. He was 5 years old at the time. We always knew something was up with him with the rare disease. He was born with extra digits and whatnot, and so we finally had a name to it, and that was a whole new venture, learning about that syndrome.
What's your son's name?
His name is Everett.
Everett.
Yeah, and he's 9 now. But
Okay.
Yeah.
And Everett also had kind of a key role in why you decided to finally run for office here in Hudson.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Tell me that story.
Through his rare disease, I met a lot of other families with this rare disease. And I was at a conference talking with some of the families, asking them a lot of questions. And now I had been out of the video business for a couple of years. But once I started interviewing, I'm like, I need to have a camera. I need to share this story with other folks. And so that became my passion to producing videos and creating Alms Creative,
Okay.
which is my business. So that folded into getting introduced to a whole new world of people with rare diseases overall. So to answer your question about getting involved with local politics, I got involved from a national level with rare diseases. Took a trip. This would have been the last week in February of 2015 was the Rare Disease Week in Washington, D.C. And so I went there for a week, and they prepped us a day going in. They being, we had a group that we were going to talk with representatives, senators about rare disease, some legislation that was coming through, very nonpartisan stuff. And so we met with, I met with Representative Duffy's staffer, and then ended up all the way meeting with Paul Ryan in the Ways and Means Committee room.
Sure.
And all of this just gave me so much new insight to politics and how it really does work. You watch television, you hear all that stuff about the politics, but getting in there and being a voice, it's like, wow, this is interesting. I kind of want to get involved from a local level. So I came back from that trip in March, and I got to know Barb Van Lunen. She works through Operation Help that I did some work with, volunteering with, and just said, I think I might run for city council. Just kind of an offhand, and the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, I think I want to do that. And that was, at that time, I knew that Mayor Jakob would be up for election in spring of 2016.
This coming year.
Yeah, this coming year. So I'm like, okay, so I can
Plenty
spend
of time
the next.
to sit and plan.
Yeah, get to know. I don't know anybody in politics locally and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I want to take the opportunity, and that got fast tracked.
Right. When Mary resigned.
stepped down. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So, what platform do you want to bring to office? I guess why run for office? You said you gave me the reason that you enjoyed what you learned from the national level when you were in D.C. Right. But what do you want to change or do here in Hudson?
Sure. So take you back to DC just real quick. Every politician that we met with, every elected official, I guess I would say, but everybody there that I met with, staffers, whatnot, said they can't make decisions without hearing from their constituents. They need to hear feedback about how people feel about the different issues. And so from the local level, in Mary Jacob's tenure, when we first moved, I was blown away. She would send out emails, updates, even so far as to say, hey, they're burning up some fields or something south of the neighborhoods. If you start smelling smoke, that's what it's from. Just very informative. And so, she did that, and I kind of want to continue that on and grow that even more to be, we're 1,600 or so, 1,650 registered voters in District 2. I think it's small enough where I can have a good relationship with my neighbors.
And how many of your neighbors did you meet and knock down their doors? And
Not enough. Not enough.
What are you going to do to maintain those relationships and build them further as city councilman?
Believe it or not, election is all about knocking on doors and doing whatever for your campaign to get elected. I'm going to be knocking on doors, whether it's through internet or physically knocking on doors, to really try to get to know everybody now that I'm elected, because I need to figure out ways to have those two-way conversations. I started a quick Facebook group in August, had an influx of people join that group, and it's a closed group for just District 2 residents, and just a place where I can throw out some of the issues that are coming to City Council and try to create that two-way conversation.
Do you want to describe a little bit of what exactly District 2 is? There's probably a lot of viewers out there who probably might not know what district they sit in and whether you're their new
Sure.
alderman.
Sure.
Which neighborhoods are we talking about here?
Okay, so I live in Heritage Greens neighborhood. So it's off of Stage Line behind the hospital, kind of in the nook where 94 and 35 meet, right? It's just southwest nook. And so it includes Heritage Greens neighborhood, Red Cedar Canyon, Lighthouse, which is right across the road from Stage Line. And then across the road, across 35, going down to River Falls, there's a neighborhood called Hudson Meadows.
Okay.
And, like I said before, I did not do enough knocking, and that was more of a time crunch piece.
And you have a Facebook group for
Yes.
for this neighborhood, these series of neighborhoods now.
Correct, for all of District 2.
Would you like to say what that Facebook group is so folks can find it?
Yes, I hope I say it correctly.
Okay.
And maybe we can add it graphically later or something, but it's Bill Alms, the people's voice of District 2.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Or something along those lines.
Yes, or just friend me on Facebook, yeah.
What are some of the issues in Hudson
Yes.
that the city overall, not just District 2, but the city overall is facing right now that you are going to be tackling during your next term?
So, backing up with my interest, there's not any particular issue that got me interested in running for City Council. There's not one specific big issue that's coming to Hudson or facing Hudson that I'm extremely passionate about that I want to take the charge on. I do know that in the November 16th meeting, there's going to be some discussion around library funding. And once I get into, now that I'm elected, I really want to dig in and see what all facets are. I don't have an opinion going in, except to say that my opinion is to make sure that what my vote is the overall voice of District 2, which is going to be a challenge, obviously.
Okay. I know politicians always have to walk the line of standing behind strong principles and being the voice of their people.
Sure.
And you fall way to the one side of being a voice of the people rather than having strong principles to gather people behind. Is that a fair statement?
Say that one more time.
Instead of having a core set of really strong principles that are unbending.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
You're looking to the people to lead you, and you are serving them.
Exactly right. And that's going to be the difficult part, though, because it's going to be almost impossible for me to gain a consensus. But at least I want to get all the information out there and really hear that feedback. There's a lot of, it's this balance of what's fiscally responsible for Hudson and what's socially responsible for Hudson, right? It's walking that balance and doing the right thing for Hudson overall. I hate to say it, sometimes might be not in the greater interest of District 2, but I want to get that information out there, and I want to have that conversation. Does that make sense?
It does. I think one of the challenges that you might have to face is maybe getting an agenda packet at 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. It's having enough time to study it and
Right.
have a conversation with your constituents before a Monday night meeting. Do you have a plan for that in place, or do you look at throwing it all out there on the Facebook group and having open conversations there?
Well, I think to a certain extent, what I'm talking about are the big issues are not the packet that I receive on Friday. It's more broad scope. How do you feel about X, Y, or Z? The library issue, for example. I'll be digging into that now that I know that is November 16th. I need to do a lot of legwork to figure out what that is and how to get to people. But I guess backing all the way up, my first thing on my priority, and it's high priority right now, is how do I reach out to everybody and make sure that everybody has a voice. Election night, right? It's 8:30. I just get a call from the city clerk, and we find out who was elected. And I'm talking with, there was 4 really good neighbors, friends of mine that really helped out, and they were over, and my parents were over. And in fact, I think you were asking me for my statement, and I'm sitting there, okay, so I just need to make sure what I'm doing here. And, I'm talking about this Facebook group, and I'm talking about email, and my mom stops the conversation. She's like, okay, I need to tell you this, because in my generation, there's not a lot of folks that have access to Facebook, to technology. How are you going to reach out to those people? I said, you're right. I need to find out. I need to figure out a way that I can reach out to people face to face. I mean, face to face is always best, but
Red Cedar Canyon, is that in your?
Red Cedar Canyon, yep.
That's in your district?
Yeah, in fact, my backyard opens up to Red Cedar.
And I'm certain there's probably most of the industrial park as well. You're going to have to figure out how to reach out to those business owners.
Exactly.
I'm sure they'll have strong voices and opinions.
Exactly right.
You've got a school in your district, and you've got the big dog track as well. I think that's part of the district. Or pretty close anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to be an issue that affects the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other big issues? Obviously, the city in the school district is in the throes of trying to solve the secondary space issue.
Right.
I know the city is also starting to put some feelers out for a public safety building and where it might make sense to put a new building, or if they can make changes to the existing buildings. Roads is always an issue. What are some of the principles that guide you while you're listening to your constituents on some of these kind of topics that are always in government?
Gotcha. Some more of the, I don't want to say day-to-day decisions, but is that kind of what you're asking? What really drives me, I guess, is common sense. decisions. But beyond that, there's a lot of, maybe it's a bad connotation to say creative. I'm a very creative individual, and in the line of work that I do, it's creative. Look at the challenges that I have to tell a story versus on video, and coming up with ways to tell that story effectively. What challenges do I have? How can I overcome them? How can I look at this one challenge from multifaceted? What's the best solution? And that's what I want to really bring to City Council is, hey, did you look at this way? And I wasn't certain that I was going to run until I went to a City Council meeting just as an observer.
Okay.
After the couple of City Council things where I had to get up and talk. And to see them talk about the Vine Street construction coming up and figuring out, okay, so when does that happen in conjunction with the bridge opening up by Stillwater, and how does the potential closing of 94 exits to downtown because of repair, maintenance affect, and them coming up with this is when we should do that date, and being able to be a part of that process is what's exciting to me.
Great.
And not the greatest of answers, but that's when I'm charged with doing something, and thank goodness that my neighbors had the what am I trying to say? My neighbors elected me, felt confident with me. Now that I'm here, it's time for me to dig in and learn all the stuff that I don't know yet.
And you've already had a little bit of dealings with the city. The mayor has reached out to you, and you said you've spoken with the city clerk, Nancy. She's actually going to be leaving soon, but
right, November or December 4th, I think.
Something like that, pretty quick here.
I know, she's wonderful. I mean, every question that I've never run for anything, and I'm calling her, and I'm like, okay, what do I need to have done when, and so she's been wonderful. But
is there any inkling at all from the mayor or from anybody else of the city on which other committees you'll be serving on, other than just the main city council?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
I do have an interest in some of the things. I think Parks and Rec, library is another committee that I wouldn't mind being part of. But mostly I want to. I'm sort of the new person in, so wherever gap fillers need to be, that's me, and I'll dig my heels in and work it. But I do want to make a note. I did meet with Mayor Burchell before my campaign, and
okay.
That was a great meeting. I think he's a really good mayor.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, you get to kind of dig in. It sounds like maybe Monday, November 16th might be your first meeting.
Right. Yep.
So. Folks at home, if you're interested in watching your next councilman raise his right arm and swear to whoever that he's going to do his best job for us, come on down to the meeting at City Hall on Monday, November 16th. Thanks for joining us.